The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melone. Hello, everyone. I am Sophia Melonē, the Debt Demolisher, here to bring you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you manage your financial baggage the right way. Welcome to another live stream night on the Debt Demolisher TV, where we are actually going to be taking our conversation to something that is very important, not only something that is very important, but something that needs to be talked about, something that needs to be addressed, and something that needs to be not only thought about, but also beginning to take action on it. Now, when we think about our future, when we think about the things that we are doing now and how we would like the things that we're doing now to lead to the future experience that we would like to encounter, not only that, what we would like to leave behind for our legacy, for our loved ones, for those who are in our lives, for the ones who we care so deeply about. When we think about everything that we're doing now, everything that we want to be able to do, every single action step that we put in place to secure either our future or to secure those that are going to come behind us, there's always one thing that a lot of times in a lot of households, and especially within our communities, that we do not have this very, very important subject matter that I'm getting ready to bring up tonight. And that is none other than estate planning. Now, I'm telling you guys right now, I am not by any means an estate planning attorney. I am not by any means a lawyer. I am not by any means anyone who could legally give any type of advice or strategy around that regard. I just want to speak to you guys from what I've been able to witness from personal experience and what I've also been able to learn as a result of someone else sharing their experiences. Estate planning is a very touchy subject, and it's touchy because it causes us to think about the point in which we will transition, the point in which we will no longer live, the point in which our expiration date has come to pass. Now, we all don't know when this date is coming. We don't know when it's going to be time for us to transition over. We don't know our limit. I was listening to a sermon by Dr. Myles Munroe, and I actually saved this sermon as one of my playlists just specifically for inspiration. And the things that he was saying in that sermon was so powerful. First of all, if y'all don't know, Dr. Myles Munroe has transitioned, but his teachings to this day has blessed me in such an astronomical way. And being able to still have access to not only his books, I have several of his books, but being able to have access to those old sermons that he did in prior years while he was still living, for him to still be able to have the company that he built to still be running, to be able to release content for us to consume right now during this day, even though he passed back in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So when I think about this sermon and when I think about all of the lessons that were shared inside of it, when I think about the thing that a lot of us don't think about, and it's as it relates to time, not only thinking about the time in which how we manage our days, but how are we managing the time of our life? Because our life does have a time limit. We don't know when that time limit is, but we know for sure that it's going to come one day. So if we know the inevitable, if we know that we can't live forever, if we know that we are at some point in time going to be called home and are going to cross over, or maybe not cross over, however you want to look at it. And we know that this day is coming, but we know that a part of our life has been designed and built around building wealth, building a family, sustaining a family, having a level or sense of responsibility in some way, shape, or form. We know that that has been a journey in our lives. But have we stopped to think about when we transition, what are we leaving behind? How much are we leaving behind? Who are we leaving it behind to? Who do we want to be responsible for managing the assets that we've built and created? A prime example is Dr. Miles Monroe. He was a mega author, well-known, renowned leadership speaker in the spiritual space, in the spiritual practice, built a church or an organization around faith, a ministry. And now that he has transitioned, Monroe Global is still alive. Monroe Global is still alive because the estate plan was in place. The estate plan was in place to designate who would be responsible for what, who was going to carry on the tradition, who was going to pick up the torch and keep the torch burning. His children. Luckily enough, he introduced them to the business-minded space early enough so that they can be able to manage what was coming on their plate to manage. So I'm sharing this story with the correlation on the business side in terms of the level of preparation that it'll take to handle what's being transferred over to you. You really want to be able to have that same conversation around what you are either planning to transfer over to someone else or what could potentially be transferring unto you at the time someone in your family or someone in your life or someone that you may have been listed as an heir to receive. There was a conversation that came up about inheritance. I think it was during one of the live streams, And we talked about inheritance tax just a little bit. I did a presentation for a corporation not too long ago, and that same topic came up, inheritance tax. What are some of the stipulations around it? When will inheritance tax be assessed? When do you have to pay taxes on an inheritance? These are the things that we don't necessarily think about. These are the things that we aren't necessarily educating our intended heirs about. These are the things that we choose sometimes to just decide to let it be what it is and let them handle whatever they want to handle, let them do whatever they want to do, let them deal with the consequences if there is any. So I want to challenge you guys in this conversation today to really think about what you're leaving behind. And when you think about what you're leaving behind, of course, you're going to be thinking about everything that's in your possession or what you plan to have in your possession, what you are building towards. And then once you've identified that, think about your strategy in terms of the plan. What is going to be the transition plan? And it's funny because one of the raps in my playlist, my financial literacy rap playlist, I talk about wealth building And I actually talk about estate planning a little bit in there. And there's a line in the rap where I said that you're building all this wealth, but ain't got no one to leave it to. What? It's a shame. No estate plan puts you out the game. The wealth for your legacy just got tamed, snatched by the court system, circulating pain. Hey, do it different for your race. The Black community ain't expected to even place wealth in a position to get transferred. We can't keep letting our fortunes go to waste. The number one reason why any wealth, if we do have any, is not successfully transferred is because we do not have these basic foundational must-have documents set up. And when I say set up, I mean set up correctly. Set up to the point in which they are valid. Because the minute somebody passes away, that's when the havoc starts to start, especially if the person who passed away got some assets. And when I say assets, I'm talking about property, I'm talking about real estate, I'm talking about business, I'm talking about bank accounts, I'm talking about retirement accounts, I'm talking about life insurance policies. So all of these things, well, not really the life insurance policy, because if it's designated to a beneficiary, then they'll just get it. But thinking about all of the things that you're building up, all of the things that you're accumulating, no estate plan, no trust, no will, no power of attorneys, none of that. So why is it that we oftentimes refrain or avoid looking at or even thinking of creating an estate plan, putting those documents in place, going through the legitimate processes for you to set it up? The number one common reason that I truly believe is a lot of times people feel like when you start talking about estate planning, that means that you're going to pass away sooner. Like you calling death upon yourself or something along those lines. And that may not necessarily be the case, but it's just a matter of us planning. Because the moment we avoid it, the moment we disregard it, the moment we don't have anything put in place, you're going to transfer either a burden onto someone else, or you're literally going to cause havoc and wreak within your family. I can't tell you guys how many times the lack of an estate plan or the process of going through probate court, how that has ripped families apart. How it has literally ripped families apart. Why? Why? Because the person who passed didn't want to be specific about what they wanted to do with the assets that they had. They didn't want to go through the process of identifying or possibly putting a trust in place to avoid the whole probate issue. They didn't want to face the fact that mortality was coming either way you look at it. They placed it on the back burner. And when you place it on the back burner, somebody else has to step in and do the management of that. So it's either going to be the court system, or it's going to be whoever is bold enough in your family to step up as an executor to handle that responsibilities until the whole probate situation is resolved. There's a lot of things that go into it. Think about what you have. Do you have your beneficiary set up? Do you have sufficient life insurance to cover not only your expenses, not only your burial expenses, but if you have children, how will they sustain themselves if they're younger? Do you have guardians appointed? Who do you want to take care of your child in the event that something happens to you and you're incapacitated? Who do you want to be able to make health decisions for you? Who do you want to be able to make financial decisions for you? These are some heavy topics. And I think one of the major things that also can cause a stumbling block in getting this stuff set up is because it may be difficult to find somebody who you can trust to a point to do that for you. And it's sad to say that sometimes in our families, they can be really greedy for money. I'm telling you, stuff will change when money is on the line. Stuff will change when somebody feel like they're entitled to something. Stuff will change in an instant. So if you just leave it to be whatever it is, if you just leave it to them figuring it out after you pass because it's no longer going to be your problem, I want to challenge you to think otherwise. I want to challenge you to think a little bit different. I want to challenge you to have the hard conversations with yourself around estate planning. How are you planning for your future? And even after that, how are you planning for your legacy, your children, your family members? Some of y'all may not have family. Some of y'all may be solo. Some of y'all may not have children. Some of y'all may not have a spouse. Some of y'all may not have no family members at all. Or you probably do have family members, but y'all ain't close like that. That could be a situation. So if you don't decide while you have the active mental wherewithal to do so, to put these things down on paper while you're clear-minded and you can make the decisions for yourself in terms of what you want, understanding the fact that it could always be changed if something in your life changes. You could always update, you could always make tweaks, you could always modify. But the thing that we don't want to get into the space of is not setting up anything at all, not doing anything at all, telling yourself, oh, I got time. And that time is going to turn into what? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. And you'll allow all of this time to go by and you have none of your foundational documents in place. So be proactive now so that you can protect not only yourself in the future, but you can protect your heirs in the future, your legacy in the future. It is pivotal. It is pivotal that we have these conversations. I know it may be tough, and I can raise my hand and say that it's been tough for me. And that's why when you come to a realization that there's something that you need, or there's something that you've been avoiding, or there's something that you feel like you just can't face on your own, that is the point in time where you need to bring somebody else in. That is the point in time where you need to go find an attorney. That is the point in time where you may need to go and find a coach. Because honestly and truthfully, depending on what type of attorney you have, if you haven't worked through the emotional baggage to be able to make the decisions, come on, somebody, you're going to be wasting your time and your money. Because if you hire an attorney and you say that you want to be able to get this stuff done, and then they give you this huge laundry list of things that you now have to complete. This laundry list of things of now you have to make a decision on. This laundry list of things of now where you have to list name by name. Those tough conversations, it could cause you to buckle up. It could cause you to halt. It could cause you to get uncomfortable. It could cause you to maybe feel unclear. It could cause you to table it. But if you're able to work through the emotional side of it, if you're able to talk through it first so that you can be absolutely clear on the names who you want to name, the route that you want to go, understanding that when the questions come forth, when you talk to the attorney, you'll be able to have that emotional intelligence to handle the conversation and not default to feelings of defeat or distress or discomfort or sadness, because we know it's coming. We just don't know when. So if there is anything that you feel has been holding you back from either getting your documents together, from either having conversations around those who you plan to appoint, come on, that's a whole nother conversation. Because what we have to realize as well is when you assign an executor or when you place a responsibility of something like guardianship on someone or power of attorney, if you put that type of responsibility on someone, they have to be well aware of what it takes to handle that role. They have to be well aware of what you are asking them to do. So don't blindside somebody, appoint somebody as an executor, and they have no idea what the role encompasses. Don't appoint somebody, list them as their guardian, and they have no idea. And let me say this again, list them as the guardian of your children, and they have no idea what that encompasses, what your wishes are, how much is it going to cost to obtain and uplift your wishes for now being the caretaker of these children. Come on, somebody. You have to think about that as well. When you assign someone as a guardian, when you assign someone to be the legal custodial of your child, that's a whole added expense to them. Now, have you thought about that? Have you thought about what is it going to take for this person to now take care of your child? Is that somehow incorporated into the insurance policy that you have? So that when you pass, and if you have children and you assign a guardian, that they will at least be able to get something to be able to take care of your child. I'm just saying. So really think through this entire process. Think about what you have. Think about what you probably need to put in place. Think about the conversations that you need to have with yourself or with others around this conversation. And if you know that you have something that is of value in terms of wealth that you plan to transfer to your children, that you plan to transfer to your loved ones, please educate them now. Please teach them now so that they can know how to manage the inheritance that you're leaving for them. Please teach them now. Whatever that looks like, teach them now. And if you can't teach them the right way now, it's time for you to start learning. It's time for you to start taking action on modifying your behaviors around money, around investing, around debt management, around credit, around taxes, around money relationships. because all of that plays a role and plays a part inside of your wealth building strategy. Because it's not just about building wealth so that you can be able to just live off of the wealth that you built. It's about having a plan in place even after you've gone, because you can't take none of this stuff with you. You can't take none of it with you. When you take your last breath, you cannot take your property with you. You cannot take your Bitcoin with you. You cannot take your car with you. When you gone, you gone. And you're going to leave just the way you came in. So, are you someone who has been avoiding this conversation? Are you someone who has been feeling like, I do want to do it. I'm getting started in the process, but now I'm stuck because I don't know what to do. I don't feel comfortable choosing this person. I don't really feel like I trust anybody. I don't know if I would trust them with my life in their hands. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And we want to be able to not be a burden on someone after the fact. So start having these conversations. Start identifying your alternatives. There are alternatives. There are alternatives. So even if you don't have a family, even if you don't have anyone, even if you feel like I'm by myself, there are options. But what research have you done? What research have you done? So the task and the challenge that I want to leave you guys with is to really do an inventory of your own estate planning documents. And if you weren't able to capture all of the ones that I mentioned so far, there is a whole lot more. There is a whole lot more. But I want to challenge you to do your homework. Do a quick search of the basic foundational estate planning documents every person should have, regardless of their tax filing status, regardless of their parental status, regardless of their age. What are just the baseline documents that everybody should have? Look up that and do the assessment for yourself. Ask yourself, do I have this? Ask yourself, do I have that? Ask yourself, do I have that? Start with the foundational documents. And before you move forward and try to move on down and look for other stuff and thinking about the big stuff, start with the foundation. Google what are the foundational estate planning documents every person should have, regardless of age, regardless of status, regardless of sex. What should they have? And when I say sex, I'm meaning male or female. And where are you in comparison to that checklist that you found? Where are you in comparison to that checklist? And if there's anything that you don't have, I want you to identify an action step that you can take to get that line item checked off. So if that's a power of attorney, if you were to become incapacitated, if you were able to suddenly not be able to speak, eat, drink, think for yourself, who would you appoint to make those health decisions for you? Who would you appoint to manage your finances while you're incapacitated? Who would you choose? And again, if you don't have a family, if you don't have anyone that you trust, start doing your research to find the alternatives. Start doing the research to find the alternatives. That's just one example of an action step. So one action step could lead you into multiple action steps, but I just want you to focus on one set for now. Start with the foundation. Get the basic documents in order first. And then we can pick up and carry along with the rest. All right. I wanted to have a focused conversation to kind of talk about this. So I didn't pop out the chat on purpose, but I will pull it up now just so that I can see who's in the room. So forgive me. Don't think that I was trying to ignore y'all, but I did not pop out the chat on purpose so that I can be able to talk to y'all one-on-one. All right. I see a lot of y'all in the building. Hello, hello, hello. Acacia's in the building saying greetings to everyone. Hey, Acacia. Q Scott's in the building saying, hey there. Hey, Q Scott. Tracy Ann is in the building saying, hey, hey, Sophia. Hey, 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 Tracy Ann. Lat is in the building saying, woohoo, hello all. So good to see you all. Lisa's in the building saying good night. Shout out to you, Lisa. Thank you for sending me over to my Instagram page because you know I don't be on Instagram. So I'm glad you told me to go over there and check it. But Lisa has sent me a DM and I was cracking up because she saw something that had DDTV on it. And she said when she saw it, it reminded her of me. She said, somebody need to cut you a check. I started cracking up. Somebody need to cut you a check. So thank you for that. You made me smile this evening. So thank you, Lisa H. Tracy Ann is saying, I'm loving your hat game. Thank you so much. This hat was actually designed by the artist, Sierra Lynn. So if you guys do not know who Sierra Lynn is, you can follow her on Instagram. She is amazing. She's a natural artist. And so she actually hand paint. Y'all see the signature? See Sierra Lynn? That's her right there. Yes. So I have a lot of her stuff, but yeah, she's an amazing artist and she has clothing, apparel, paints. She does so much. She's amazing. So the artist, Sierra Lynn, probably on every social media platform. Yes, yes, yes. I went to high school with her. So, all right. Yep. All right. So hello, everyone. Q Scott saying GUWL had a session on it today. I missed it due to prior obligations, but checking to see if they had the replay available or presentation deck. So yes. So the session that was today was on retirement and life insurance. And woo child, that thing was good. Today was good. Yesterday was about estate planning, which was also good. And I think the replay is going to be available. I think it's available through Facebook. Like if you find their Facebook page, because they were saying that it was being streamed. So if you find their Facebook page, you should be able to see the replay on their Facebook page. And as far as the presentation decks, I believe you had to be in the live room because they were like taking attendance or whatever. So you had to put your name in the chat as attendance, or if you had to drop your email if you wanted them to send you the slide deck. But I believe that's what they're going to do. So if you were there and you kind of opted in, then they'll send you the slide deck, but you could always go to their Facebook page and pull up the presentation because it should be there because they said that they were live streaming it. All right. Okay. What? Oh my goodness. Q Scott is saying so true. My sister-in-law, her husband's sister passed away this AM, so out of the blue. My condolences, Q Scott. My condolences to your family and to your sister-in-law. So I'm sending my regards. I'm telling you, we just don't know. We don't know when it's going to be our time. We really don't know. We don't know, but we just got to make sure that we're ready, that our soul is saved. Come on, somebody. And that we're able to, put these things in place to help protect those who are going to leave behind. Because, Tracy Ann saying this is a good conversation to have. Keisha saying, yes, it is. It is the true process of distribution is a faster, less chaotic process than a will. Okay, is it trust? I think that's what you're trying to say. Is it true that the process of distribution is a faster, less chaotic process than a will? I understand a will could linger in courts. Trust is more defined process. Absolutely. So, you have to realize and again, I'm not a legal advisor or estate planning attorney, so let me say that disclaimer and make sure that you check out the disclaimer that's in the description box of this video. But absolutely, because even if you have a will, it still has to go through probate court. It still has to go through probate court if you have a will and no trust in place. So if you just have a will, the court fee is going to be eating it up. People going to be fighting. When you go through the probate, it's basically saying they're putting out an announcement saying this person passed away. These are their assets. Do you have any claim or right to their assets or to this person's assets? And so this is when a lot of people can come forth. This is when a lot of stuff can come forth. You know, creditors, lenders, family members, all kinds of stuff. It's chaotic. It can be chaotic. So even though it's good to have a will to kind of make your wishes known, so to speak, but that's not going to avoid it from going to probate. And that's not going to avoid it from being public information. Because what you have to realize is when you go through probate, that's a public process. And the courts got to get paid. The lawyers got to get paid. And the longer it takes for people to agree, the longer it takes for it to be, you know, everyone comes into unison, depending on how many people are involved in it, it can take years and it can still be unsettled. And by the time it does settle, you probably ain't gonna have no money in it because the court fees done ate it all up. So absolutely, the trust, in my opinion, my personal opinion, is the best way to go. It's the best way to go because it avoids the whole court process altogether. All you have to do is appoint an executor of the trust. And the executor of the trust could be an attorney if you don't want it to be a family member. You could assign someone other than a family member to be the executor of a trust. And the executor is responsible for the management and the distribution of said assets that are inside of the trust. They are responsible for adhering to the rules of the trust. So, you know, yeah. Acacia saying heavy but necessary. Process of trust distribution. Yep. Yep. It's less chaotic. Absolutely. Don't have to worry about courts. None of that. Whatever is in the court, whatever is in the trust rules stands. And that's how it's going to get disseminated. Yeah. All right. Good questions to think about. Should estate planning be considered as a part of your retirement planning? I would say yes. And the reason why I would say yes, and actually they talked about this too during the session today that was on retirement and insurance. So they talked about, and I may not be able to remember exactly what she said verbatim, but she talked about how those conversations should kind of be in tandem because essentially your retirement, you could assign a beneficiary to those. So if you have a retirement account or if you have a retirement plan, you should have some type of beneficiary set up for that as well. So I think it kind of goes in tandem, but I think it should definitely be something that you think of twofold. Don't just think about retirement and not estate planning, and don't just think about estate planning and not retirement. So that's what I would say. All right, this is an eye opener and a great topic. Google, here I come. Come on, Lisa H, let's go. Yes, GWULs. Yes, they're if you go to their Facebook page, Greater Washington Urban League, you should definitely be able to catch the presentations that they did. Yes, the decks. I remember I had to be on. They emailed me the one for the other day that I actually needed. Good. So thanks. I'll look out. Awesome. Yes, you're getting some condolences from Tracy Ann, Q Scott. This conversation reminds me that ever since I've had grandbabies, I have prayed and declared Proverbs 13:22, which is a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. I say, come on, somebody. That was a whole word, a whole entire word. Huh. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. Can I get an amen? Now, that's a strong proverb. And even when I think about it from a perspective of me being single with no children yet, Lord willing, it's all up to the Lord. It's all up to the Lord. Okay. It's all up to the Lord. But me being single with no children, sometimes the word legacy, because legacy doesn't have to necessarily be tied to your physical children. It could be tied to other children in your family. It could be tied to your intellectual property. Your legacy could be tied to multiple things. What you create, both mentally and physically, because you create children, you birth them out, for my ladies, for us creators, authors, business owners, you create entities, you create things, and that is a form of legacy. As I was saying in the beginning of this live stream, I talked about Dr. Miles Monroe and how his legacy is still living and his legacy is still teaching, although he's passed on many years now. And I go to his sermon like, or I find a lesson from him that'll speak directly to my soul. And it doesn't even feel like he's not here in the physical anymore, because his legacy was his art. His legacy was his gift of preaching. His legacy was his gift of interpretation. His legacy was his ability to break down the word in a way that a lot of people can't do. So your legacy is unique. Your legacy may not always be tied to a tangible thing or what society says your legacy is, which is normally tied to a portfolio. Your legacy is way more than that. So even thinking about leaving an inheritance for your children's children, thinking about leaving an inheritance for your bloodline, thinking about leaving an inheritance for maybe the things that you believe in, the causes that you want to support. There are nonprofit organizations that manage that stuff, that manage the wealth that someone has left behind, because they may not have had a family member, or they may not have had trust in that family member to leave them with what it was that they had. They designated a nonprofit organization to do that. And so now they are tasked with the responsibility and the obligation to manage it as such. Whew. All right. All right. Coach Natisha's in the building. Hey, Coach Natisha, so good to see you. So good to see you in the building. Tracy Ann is saying the rest of that scripture is, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. Woo! You must do right when creating wealth. Oh, now. Oh, now. You're preaching, Tracy Ann. You're preaching, Tracy Ann, tonight. That was good. And that's another thing that Dr. Miles Monroe talks about too. He says, if you're righteous and, you believe, you live for God, you believe for God. He said, if you broke or if you poor, that's your problem. That's your problem. In a nutshell, he didn't say it like that, but basically he was saying that's your problem, because the sinner's wealth is stored up for us. So we got to go get what's ours from the sinners if we have to. So, but if I can find the sermon, I may see if I can find it and drop it down in the description box. But it was a really, really, really good sermon. Really, really, really good keys talking about how we should be operating with money, how we should be thinking about money, how we should be just navigating our day-to-day finances and understanding the fact that if we serve a God that is of abundance, then that abundance is at our fingertips. We just necessarily probably haven't tapped into it. So there's a whole bunch of sermons Dr. Miles Monroe has, but awesome. All right, so are there any questions that you all have about the topic? I know we got a little deep, we got a little bit heavy. We talked a lot about estate planning. You all know what your growth work, I'm giving y'all a task to do tonight to really assess where you are. Assess where you are in your estate planning documents. Do the research and find out what are the foundational basic estate planning documents that every person should have, regardless of the fact of whether or not if they have children, regardless of the fact of whether or not that they're married, regardless of whether or not if they have significant amount of wealth or no wealth. Regardless of where you are, what are the basics? What are the baselines? Assess where you are. Think about who you would want, who you could trust, who you could appoint to be in that role that you need them to be, that you would like to appoint them to be. Maybe even have a conversation about it to make sure that they're clear. Because a lot of times we may ask people something, but they don't really understand the full responsibility that's associated with it. Oh, will you be able to take care of my kids if something happened to me? Oh, will you be able to do this if something happened to me? That's a hard thing to do in the moment when it happens. So have you thought about the transitioning of that responsibility? How can you make it maybe just a little bit easier on the person who you're putting that responsibility onto? Because it's really not their responsibility. They don't have to. They don't have to say yes. And sometimes a lot of people agree to stuff, not understanding the dynamics of it, because the person who asked them wasn't really clear on what that process would entail or what their level of expectations will be in that regard. So we got some work to do. We have some lessons that we need to continue to move through. We have to be willing to have these hard conversations. We have to be willing to think about our future. We have to be willing to plan ahead. We have to be willing to make those tough decisions now so that it won't be such a burden on your family members or on your loved ones after you transition, or even maybe if you're in a state of incapacitation, because that can happen. We just don't know when. We just don't know when. All right. Is estate planning something I can discuss with a financial retirement planner through my union membership? It possibly is. So, and this is another thing, you guys, and even if you can't talk to them directly about it, depending on who your union is with, or who you get sessions with, or who your EAP sponsor or provider is, it doesn't hurt to ask them, because they could always point you in the right direction. So if you are working for an employer and your employer is giving you the benefit of employee assistance programs, which is EAP, I actually did a video on this, on how y'all need to leverage the free resources that are available to you through your EAP, because they have a whole lot of stuff. Some of the EAPs even give you financial counseling, but you haven't looked into it, so you don't know. So just go and ask. A lot of the EAPs, they do have legal advice, maybe to some degree, that you can go and speak to. They do have retirement financial consultations or financial resources that you can tap into. It's just a matter of you contacting them. Find out what they have. That could be another question or another homework assignment for you to research and look into. Find out. And if you get the free counseling sessions, or if you get the free consultations, leverage it. Ask them. Be pointed in the right direction. They could either tell you yes or no, or they can give you some information and say, for more information, you may want to contact such and such. You may want to go through this listing. You may want to do this. Because sometimes we may not be able to get the full scope of the answer that we need, but we can get the introduction that we need that can guide us to the space that's going to give us the full answer that we're looking for. So that was a great question, Tracy Ann. Great question. All right, Q Scott is like, right, like asking someone to be your accountability partner and them not understanding what that all entails. Come on, somebody. Don't make me go back to the vet your spending challenge. Don't make me go back to the day when we had to identify our 4-point pit stop. Understanding who our 4-point pit stop is and being careful who you ask to make sure that they're going to be able to meet what it is that you need, what it is that your expectations are. So when we are asking someone for something, we have to be very clear on what that entails. And we have to be very clear with letting them know it's okay for them to say no. Letting them know up front, it's okay for them to say no. Because what you don't want is to ask someone to do this and they do it because they feel like it's out of pressure or it's out of guilt or they don't want to disappoint you or they're feeling like you're the only person. So they say yes out of pressure, but not yes out of sincerity and understanding the full scope of what that responsibility is going to entail. And then when they get tasked with the responsibility, they either fall off the face of the earth, they drop off, they avoid you, or they change their mind and they say, I can't do this. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. All right. I've actually used, yep. You get discounts. There you go. You get discounts. So they can point you in the right direction, or they may be even able the ones to do it for you and give you a discount at the same time. All right. Whew. So did you already look up the baseline checklist, Q Scott? Is that what I'm seeing? You already started your work? Come on now. That's what I'm talking about. 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 All right. I love it. If you did already started pulling up your baseline checklist. Okay. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So I hope that this conversation tonight served you all well. I'm super excited that we are days away from our tax prep with me live stream. That's going to be this Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So if you guys are ready to get into this work and you guys want to be able to just start to really get your stuff together when it comes to your tax prep, I'm pretty sure you guys probably still have more forms that need to come because I still haven't gotten all of mine, but I got most of mine. But we're going to be cranking through, pulling what we need to get pulled together, checking the things that we need to check, updating the records that we need to update so that we can be as up to date as possible. So that way, once we get whatever it is that we need left over, you can either do your tax returns yourself, or you can go ahead and schedule your appointment with your tax preparer or your CPA or whoever it is that does your taxes. All right. All right. So she said, oh my gosh, I have an annual life insurance review with my agent in April. Just read it's beneficial to have policies. Don't make me get up because I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it, but Q Scott done already dropped it in there. So I'm getting ready to go ahead and say it. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something because Q Scott already done dropped the gem, but it's finna come out on this channel right now. Let me tell you something. If you really, really want to be able to protect the payouts for the life insurance policies that you're going to be leaving as a beneficiary to whoever you plan on leaving it to, if you want to put some rules in place, you better list your trust as a beneficiary. That's all I'm going to say. You better list your trust as a beneficiary, because inside the trust is where you can place the rules. But if you just put a regular old person as the beneficiary on your life insurance policies, guess who that check is going to go to? The person who is listed as a beneficiary. And if that check is made to the payable in the amount of payable to whoever's payable to, they can use that check however they want to. They can use that check however they want to, even though you may have had intentions. So if you want to put some stipulations around the payouts of these insurance policies, you better make a trust a beneficiary. That's all I'm gonna say. You ain't get that from me, but that's all I'm gonna say. All right. Good job. I love it, Q Scott. Can I just commend you real quick? Because you are always on it. And I love how you are planning things out for your future. You have a recurring meeting with your agent. Do you know how many people open up an insurance policy and never even look at the documents? Do you know how many people open up an insurance policy and never assess if that insurance policy is even still beneficial for them to have right now? Because dynamics change, life situations change, life events can happen, children can be born, people can pass away, you can get married, you can get divorced, all kinds of stuff can happen. But we don't think to update the records. We don't think to go back and look at what we are paying for. So we have to be diligent with constantly reviewing this stuff. Once a year is great. But how often are you looking at every other area of your life? What do you have on your calendar? What do you have on your calendar? Leverage the step that Q Scott just mentioned. If you have insurance policies, you may need to dig them up. Because sometimes our policies can be so old that we don't even know what the policy number is. And then another situation is the family member don't even know that the policy exists. If y'all want to play a fun game, we could do some research to see how many insurance policies go unclaimed. How many insurance policies go unclaimed because somebody passed away, but the beneficiary never really knew about it? So if you don't know about it, how can you put in a request for that payout? But if you have your estate planning documents, that information would be in there and they would know. Am I right or am I wrong? Am I right or am I wrong? And we have to be okay with letting people know where our paperwork is. This is even the challenge that I'm having with my own mama. Because she said, oh, you on this, oh, you on that, oh, you that. But have I seen it? No. And can I find it in that house with all that stuff? No. So if I can't see it, if I don't have physical proof of it, it does not exist. Because I don't even know where to go to know what needs to be cashed out. Other than, the stuff that I'm already on and that I already know of. But if there is no proof of it, so you got to let your people know where this stuff is so that they can know what to do in the event of an emergency, in the event of a life-threatening situation, in the event of that actual transition occurring. I know I'm giving y'all something to think about. I know it's deep, but we have to have these conversations, and we got to be willing to be open to having those conversations. Because it's better to be proactive than to be reactive. It's better to be proactive, especially when we know that this particular thing is coming, but we just don't know when. So just think about it, plan ahead, take baby steps, make a list, just make a little journal, have a booklet, little action steps of what you want to do, little action steps of what you want to check, and just one by one. You don't have to overwhelm yourself, but you do want to be able to identify what you need to be checking, what needs to be done, and the frequency of that. Come on, somebody. The frequency, because this isn't a one and done thing. This isn't a one and done thing. When you are thinking about your future and when you're planning for your future, it's a constant strategic approach. It's a constant strategy or re-strategy that needs to be done. And that takes place by you assessing where you are, because you're not going to be where you are today 5 years from now. You're not going to be in the same place where you are today 3 years from now. So if you know that you're on a trend of growth, or even if you know that you're on a cyclical thing where it's kind of going up and down, you got to brace your strategy for that. You got to brace your strategy for that. All right. I see it's deep, but it's necessary to think about and execute. Amen. Amen. It sure is. It sure is. Whew. I appreciate how you encourage and take baby steps with us. Absolutely. And I appreciate you all allowing me to do this with you guys, because I know it's personal. I always say personal finances is personal. And a part of personal finances is estate planning. So estate planning is definitely personal. And it can be very emotional because we don't want to think about that end day. I don't want to think about that end day, for anybody in my family. I don't. But I would rather be in a space where I could say that I was thinking about them before I passed on. So do your research, consider what the best avenues will be. Trust, I feel like, is a game changer, depending on the type of assets that you have, because some things may not be able to go into a trust right away, especially if you have property and you still owe on the property. So certain stipulations, but you find that out with an attorney. Talk to an estate planning attorney. Talk to someone who is specified in that area, who has a specialty in that area. And then do your own homework too. Do your own homework. We still got to vet it. Even though we're paying these attorneys all this money, we got to be able to vet some things so we can come to the table with some questions. Okay. Come to the table with some questions. And just take it step by step. Step by step. All right. Absolutely. Yes, this is so good. Do you mind if I read this out loud, Hugh Scott? If you say yes or no. If you say no, I won't. But that's but for anybody who's out, you just read in chat. But that's really good. That's important. And maybe what I'll do is I'll share this with my email list. So for those of you who are on my email list, I will send out like a checklist. This is normally something that I give to the folks who are in my coaching programs, but since we're in the spirit of talking about planning ahead and all of that, I just want to be able to share it with everybody who's on my list. So if you're on my email list this weekend, probably, because I won't be able to get to it tonight or tomorrow. So this weekend, so between Saturday and Sunday, I'll send out an email blast, and I'll send you guys the estate planning, it's kind of like a lockbox list, but basically what you do is you put all the information in there. It has everything. You can put all the information in there, and then you can use that as something that you can put aside so that if you pass away or something happens to you, that person can look at that sheet and see everything. They know all your insurance policies. They know everything. They know exactly where to go. They know exactly who to contact, who your estate planning attorney is, they'll know all of that information, and they'll know who to go to. And the good idea, okay, thank you, Q Sky. She gave me the thumbs up. So she was basically saying that she's considering putting all of her sensitive and important documents in a safety box at a bank where it's all in one place. Come on. And then giving her daughter and sister the keys. Gems. Gems. That's what we need to be doing. That's what we need to be doing. Putting it in a place where our family can get to it and where it could always be safe. Now, it may cost you a little bit of money to hold on or to maintain a safe box at a bank, but I think the cost is I would say the benefits would exceed the cost to maintain that safety box, in my opinion. But you get to look at it, you get to weigh it. But what Q Scott just said is a game changer. If you don't want to be able to have your stuff locked up in a house somewhere, in a spire box somewhere in your home, people may not have access to your home. They may not have keys to your home. They may not know where to look for it. Game changer. Game changer. Game changer. All right. So, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Scanning all of your important documents on a thumb drive and even in precious photos. Yeah, that's a great idea. And you can do the same thing. Scan it all on a thumb drive, put that in a safe box at a bank. Because thumb drives, you could easily misplace it. You may be going from one place to another. It may get lost. It may get damaged. You just never know what may happen. But if you can put it in a centralized space that is monitored, that is secured, that is protected, that'll have cameras that's showing people coming in and out, that'll be great. So yeah, definitely a good idea. So I think that this was a great conversation, and I'm glad you all received it well. And I hope that you all took some value out of this tonight and are looking forward to doing a little bit of research, just taking those baby steps to identify what you need to do and what it's going to take for you to get there. If you feel like you're in an emotional state, if you feel like, I don't know if I can really think through this or talk through this, I want to encourage you, leverage your EAP, leverage your therapist, leverage a coach, leverage a life coach, leverage somebody so that you're not doing this thing alone, because you still want to be able to make moves. You still want to be able to move forward and not be stuck by those tough conversations. Because I've been there. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I've been there, pushing it down the road, avoiding it, not wanting to do this, not want to do that, just feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know what to do. This is a bad decision. When you talk to people, you can really help refine your strategy. When you talk to people, you can really get clear. When you talk to people, you can unlock a new level of awareness. So try not to keep certain things to yourself. And when I say talk to people, I'm not saying talk to any old body. Talk to someone who would be unbiased, who is skilled in the emotional stance of things, or who even has the background in the area in which you are trying to get clarity in. So that's what I would say. Yep. It even has social media accounts we never think. Yes. Yes. That's what I'm telling y'all. When I did my stuff with my estate planning attorney, I had to give her everything, all of my social medias. When I say everything, everything. Because you got to think about it. Social media is even like a form of an asset, because that's traction. That's, depending on how big your following is, if you have a business and how you're running your social media, that's an asset. So yeah, they got to be able to know your handles, passwords, all of that. So who's going to be able to go into your account if you pass on and let the people know, or close down the account if they have to? So yeah. All right. Good. Tracy Ann is saying, another great live. You talk about things a lot of people don't even think about. Amen. I don't profess to know it all. It's just certain things that I feel like we should be willing and open to talk about, and not just the aspect of getting money, growing wealth, getting out of debt, We got to think about the whole cycle, and not just that. So I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. I know we're a little over an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and chime off. I'm going to go ahead and do my tips for tomorrow. Super excited. So make sure that you guys tune in tomorrow, of course, for the tax tips that I'm going to be dropping. And then the live stream tomorrow night as well. And then we're going to be doing our live stream for the tax prep with me on Saturday at 10 a.m. I hope to see y'all in the room, because we're going to be working. And when I say we're going to be working, we're going to be working. And even if you feel like you already got all your stuff together, you feel like you're not missing anything, still come in and utilize that space to do the work. Maybe you can even utilize the space to do the growth work that I just assigned to y'all tonight. Come on, somebody. We got to be able to maximize this time, maximize this space. Come on in here and get the class now. Come on in here and get the class. Oh, sorry, y'all. Sorry, y'all. Price of tried to cover up my little dress on today. So, all right, you guys, I love you. I want to remind you guys that your financial prosperity awaits you, and so does your financial sanity. Make sure that you continue to stay tuned, stay locked in, and invite somebody else into the room. If you need to share this out, feel free to share this out as well. But as always, I want to see you guys in the room, and y'all know what to do. What is it? Get to work. All right. Bye. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melone. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melone.